Tottenham Hotspur have appointed Thomas Frank as their new head coach.
And the consistency and the players know the patterns. But of course I'm aware that we need to be flexible sometimes.
You look what Thomas Frank has done over the course of 7 highly successful years, you can understand why Tottenham would be interested.
Welcome into the Tottenham Depot. I am your host, Andrew. This is episode 253. And normally I say we've got a lot to talk about on today's episode of the Depot, but we really don't. It's an international break for the men. There is a game to talk about on the women's side of things, and then just some news and notes that we're going to bat around today. And here alongside me to do it is Scott. He is at Scott G. Bird. Scott, what's going on, my friend?
Got a long intro here. I got a lot of things to cover in this intro. First of all, it just hit me that and I think maybe one of you mentioned this, right? But I was reminded today, and then reminded during the intro, that we say nothing about the Europa League victory in the intro song, which you would think that we would, but that is like standard operating procedure, just business as usual, winning trophies now. So we're right on to the next thing, which is Thomas Frank.
It's commonplace.
Right? Yeah. The second part of my intro, and there's 3 parts here. The second part of my intro is that anytime we say there's not a whole lot going on, we go for like an hour and 20 minutes. So potentially brace yourselves, listener. We don't know. We do not know the future, but there's a chance. I can
guarantee you, somebody has not eaten dinner yet, so that's not going. It's not going that way. I can guarantee you. It's going to be shorter than that. Don't worry, listener.
Fair. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. And as someone who loves dinner, nothing would stand in my way of dinner either. And then the third thing is just Iowa State, man, and just second loss on the bounce. We were going. Just as the kids would say, I'm down bad. But South Africa plays tomorrow, and if they win and get a little help from Nigeria, they're in the World Cup here in the U.S. So tomorrow could be a really big day for the Bird household. We shall see. But yeah, longest intro I've ever given the Tottenham Depot. I'll give it back over to our wonderful host, Andrew.
Yeah, man, I knew we were going to get the Iowa State update, and I'm sorry to hear that. But try being a Baltimore Ravens fan right now. See how that's going for you. So it's weird to be relying on Spurs for my sports happiness recently, but that is what has been happening, and I feel like I'm kind of walking a high wire when I do that. It's like a very, very delicate magic trick that I have to pull off in order to link my lone sports happiness to Spurs, but that's what's going on right now. Scott, I want to start by talking about Spurs Women before we get into any stuff on the men's side of things. Honestly, there's not that much to talk about, but Spurs Women played yesterday. We're recording this Monday. They played against Chelsea away. They lost 1-0, but this was one of those matches that it's one of those encouraging defeats for me. Obviously it's Chelsea. They are however many times, I think they've won 5 straight now in the WSL. They're always the champions. They're the best team in the country. They have been for I don't care what people want to say about Arsenal's women team. I know what they did, but Chelsea are the standard in the WSL, and Spurs kind of held their own for the most part in this match. It was not, look, statistically it looks lopsided, but watching this match, I kind of never felt like Spurs were out of it. What did you feel like watching this one?
Yeah, I said in the chat yesterday, I think my direct quote was, as lame as it is to say something like this after a loss, like I think we could hold our heads really high yesterday, for a couple different reasons. One is Chelsea, right? And I'm looking at their lineup now, and it's insane. Hannah Hampton, who just won the Yashin Trophy, the best women's goalkeeper in the world, right? Starts for Chelsea. Millie Bright, Kira Walsh, Cuthbert, Beaver Jones. I don't know how many times I heard her name on the broadcast yesterday. She's a machine. They're just a very, very good team, and we are working to become a good team, a very good team, right, is what I would say respectfully. And I also add the asterisk, I say respectfully out of respect for the women's team, but when I'm talking about Spurs, the organization, respectfully get your shit together and keep investing in the women's team like the rest of the league is, right? back to
Yeah,
my
for
point,
sure.
though, they're extremely talented football team. And then the other reason I think you have your heads held high yesterday is you got absolutely destroyed, smashed, whatever euphemism we want to use, by Man City. And Man City and Chelsea are the heavy hitters. And to essentially just recover from that massive failure that was that match against City, right? And come to Chelsea ready to go toe to toe rather than playing, just frozen in fear as we did against City, I think was good improvement from the squad. So a couple of different reasons to be proud, but Chelsea, again, a very talented team, and it took a Kira Walsh wonder goal to beat Tottenham yesterday. So like Martin Ho said in his after match press, or I think it was on pitch interview, one of the two, right? But defensively, an incredible performance that the team can really build off of. And all they have to start doing now, not all they have to start doing now, but what they really need to focus on now is making sure that with that type of defensive performance, you also utilize your opportunities on the ball to do a little bit more than Spurs were able to do yesterday. So the defensive masterclass, Kira Walsh wonder strike, got a little bit of work to do going forward, but ultimately a solid performance from the girls.
I'm really glad that you brought up the Man City match because I think the thing that stood out from that was it just exemplified the gap between the top of the WSL and not even the bottom, but the middle. Like,
Yeah,
let's just call it
yeah,
what it is. Like, Spurs, we believe, are somewhere in the large middle portion of the WSL, even though they were, next to last season and didn't really have a relegation fight on their hands. But in any other circumstance, had they not banked as many points as they already have this season, we'd be talking in that way perhaps again. But we know they're somewhere in the middle. But then there's that upper class, which includes the likes of, as you said, City, Chelsea, Arsenal. Those are the teams that everyone is chasing after. And to go out a few weeks ago and put out the performance they did against City, where they tended to drop their heads when things went wrong. There was not good body language. Bethany England, the captain, after the match, kind of called them out for it. I thought was a positive, and I thought it was really good leadership, the way she said it and how she went
yeah.
about the business. Like, she knew there was a problem, and it seems like you would think, based on this performance, even though it was still a defeat, this was a much different performance because, as you said, there was defensive solidity. There was, some modicum of an attack at certain points of the match as
Yeah.
well. Obviously, it's going to be difficult. The talent level there's still a gap there, and that's something that we want to see close. But the other thing too was that after Chelsea's goal, which again didn't come until like the 60th minute, 61st minute, something like that, Spurs didn't drop their heads, and they actually kind of had the better of their chances after going down a goal, which partially you would expect because a team's going to need to throw something more forward to try and get something out of the game, but also because Spurs didn't hang their heads like they did the last time, which I know I'm not trying to set that low of a bar, but like that is growth, and it's something to build upon, and I like seeing that.
100%, man. 100%. And again, I think more than anything, it's a learning experience. And I'm trying to not be redundant here from what I already said, but just taking tactically, you know, positives and negatives away from this match. Again, defensive masterclass. I think that Tinka had a somewhat of a hard time putting herself in positions to hold the ball up, right? Which I think hurt us a little bit on the counter. Not because she's not capable of doing that, but she was up against Millie Bright, who many would
Right.
argue is the best defender in the world, right?
And who also
So
just had
tough.
an incredible match. Like,
She was awesome.
she had
She was
a
awesome.
incredible game.
Yeah, and again, if you're Tinka and you just get to England and you're finding your feet, you're up against this. It's a David versus Goliath situation there. So I don't fault her for that, but she had a hard time putting herself in position to hold the ball up. Naz definitely has the pace you're looking for when you're going to absorb that much pressure and look to counter. I'm not sure that Vinberg, not I don't think Vinberg's necessarily slow, but I think lacking a secondary, option to Jess Naz that has that pace and that technical acumen, right, hurt us a little bit. But I thought overall, again, we did almost everything right. It was interesting to me that that Holt didn't start. but they said it on the broadcast, and I think I agree with this, that Holt is somebody who is just going to be a little bit more effective when she has opportunities to create in the final third, and there just wasn't going to be much of that, if any of that, yesterday against Chelsea. So I think Martin Ho actually got it right. I think maybe, he's just lacking a few pieces in his squad, no fault of his own, right, to really be able to set up a super effective and efficient counter. But we were close to getting a result. I mean, if we would have drawn yesterday at Chelsea, the entire footballing world would have been talking about a really positive result for Tottenham Hotspur.
No question about it. And like I said, I'm not trying to set the bar so low that you're hopping over it, but for Spurs to have gone out and put that performance together, I thought was a positive, despite it being a defeat. Yep. Next week they jump back into the League Cup. They will face Birmingham City, who sits second in the WSL2, but are also like scoring goals at a ridiculous clip.
Yeah.
They've scored 17 goals in 6 matches so far and have the best goal difference in WSL2. And they also got their bonus point in the first round when they faced Bristol City. So important match coming up on Sunday for Spurs, despite it being against quote-unquote lesser opposition in the League Cup. If you want to prove yourself, you've got to go out and beat the two teams, in Birmingham City and Bristol City to get yourself through. That's what they need to go do and take care of business that way. So
yeah,
it'll be interesting to see them continue to build on this. I'm liking what I'm seeing from Martin Ho early on, though. Like you're seeing, you mentioned it. Like he does have some holes, but that's not his fault. Like they signed 2 players this season who we like, and we've talked about in previous weeks. Like we like what we've seen from them, but it would be nice to have maybe 2 more of them to be able to put on the pitch as well. So
and we should probably
see where that goes.
Just the obligatory. I always want to call her Toka Koga, but it's help me here. Koga.
No, you
is Thank you, Koga. Okay, all right,
Toka Koga. You got
Toka Koga. Yes, I struggle with her name so much.
You're mixing you're mixing her up with. Now I'm doing it on the men's side, right?
Yeah. Yes, Takai, Kota Takai.
Kota Takai. Yes.
Yeah,
I did the same thing at first because we signed them both at the same time.
Yeah. So I'll say again, Toka Koga, our obligatory Toka Koga. Just brain dump. She was phenomenal again. Just all over the place, multiple blocks. Everybody on that team threw their body in front of so many shots and was just willing to completely sell out for the defensive goal, the collective defensive goal yesterday. But again, Kogo was fantastic, and I got to shout her out.
Yeah. I just want to see more investment in players like that, and more often, because that's a young player who's going to grow in this team hopefully and become a stalwart. And I think that takes not just investment from a cash standpoint, but investment from a resources standpoint. And I get that cash is a resource, but I'm talking about your scouting department, all of it. Like they need to blow that out on the women's side of things. Speaking of investments, we got this story last week that the Lewis family is investing £100 million in capital to the club. Now, I know when this story broke last week, and it was actually a statement from the club, I know that there were a lot of people thinking, "Oh, there's $100 million. There's some transfer money for us to go spend on a really good player, or maybe 3 decent players." But that's not kind of exactly what this is. This is way more like on the business side of things. The Athletic had a really good piece kind of pointing out what's going on. And I think the grand takeaway from me for all of this is, and it relates back to something that Todd and I actually talked about on the pod a few weeks ago, and that is all of these rumors that have swirled about an ownership change over the last handful of weeks. They're not something that I really got all that worked up about because I didn't really know what to believe. But this kind of news leads me to believe that there really is no chance that the Lewis family is selling anytime soon. No. Because why are you dumping $100 million into something that you're then going to sell? That, just from a business standpoint, does not make any sense. Yeah. So it leads me to believe that them rejecting all of these offers, or thoughts of offers to buy stake in the club, really means that they're not looking to get out of this anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, we saw even I think late last week that the DJ over here, Dead Mouse or Modest Mouse or whatever the dude's called, I'm not sure.
Whoever it was.
Yeah, he came out and said, "Looks like my bid is not going to work, and I give up on my attempt to buy Tottenham Hotspur." And I'm paraphrasing very aggressively when I say that, right? But yeah, you're exactly right. There's no way they're selling. I was thinking about this and talking with my wife about this yesterday, I believe, but it's so interesting to me how all of this transpired with Daniel Levy, and this does tie into the conversation around the investment, right? Not just going on a wild hair here, but Daniel Levy, Joe Louis, buddies. Everybody knows that, right? And there always was an argument that Levy wasn't willing to invest enough in taking the squad to the top of the mountain, right? And I just have to believe after everything that transpired over the summer and then this $100 million investment again, not whether or not it goes to sign Harry Kane or whatever, right? We're hoping that's the case, but sorry, I had to throw that out there. But no, whether it's player signings or investments in the back end of the business, I have to believe that just the rumors are true, right? That the Lewis children did not feel like there was enough investment in the club, and essentially, you go to your father. He's got a good buddy as his children, and say, "I don't like what I'm seeing. We are also, part of this ownership group. It's us or him." You're always going to go with your kids over your buddy, right? And it just really feels like they'd had enough and are really just ready to drop the hammer and start doing what needs to happen to see this club achieve real things. And so, yeah, it's exciting times. I think seeing this come out so shortly after Levy was removed from his post again just kind of ties all this together and tells me good things are on the horizon for the club. But we'll see.
Sure. I mean, a lot of that makes sense to me. I just, I mentioned it to Todd a few weeks ago. I was like, it's not that I don't care who owns the club. I don't really care much about all of this background stuff. Like, I want to see the product on the pitch improved and, in all aspects. And I want to see, investment in the community and in Tottenham. And obviously the stadium is a big part of that. And honestly, a lot of this, investment is going to continually paying off the debts of the stadium as well. Like, that's where all of this from the business standpoint makes sense. And it's honestly the part of the part of Daniel Levy's tenure that we all praised so much is the business side of things. The business side of the house was always very clean, it seemed. And It seems that can continue because of investments like this. So I like to see it. And I'm not that worked up about all of the rumors and all of and this kind of doesn't put that in concrete, but it certainly solidifies it a little bit to say, I don't think the Lewis family is ready to jump ship. I think they moved Daniel Levy out of the way for a very specific reason, and that was not for them to then move themselves out of the way as well. So we'll have to see how it all plays out.
It's a great point, because if you really are preparing to sell this organization, Daniel Levy is the last person you ever get rid of in that situation. I mean, the way he's positioned this club to be worth the $3.5 billion or whatever crazy number that we see these days, right? From probably I don't know, I'm totally spitballing here, 700 million that it was worth when he became chairman of the club, maybe less than that, 500 million, right? To where it's at now, it's insane. And like we've said on past shows too, Tottenham Hotspur prints money at this point in time. I mean, its stadium, which is world class, best stadium in England, is named the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Everything this club does brings money in tenfold, concerts, etc. Right? So you sell now, you're honestly walking away from what I think is like $1 billion to $1.5 billion on top of whatever it's worth now within like a 5-year period.
It's so funny you talk about the stadium because they just wrapped up the NFL games there this weekend. There's another game in London next week, but it's being played at Wembley. And the funny thing is, I mean, I'm a I would say slightly more than casual NFL watcher. You know, I watched my team's games and I poke around at some of the other games, but I don't really dive into like the fantasy and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But the talk around the NFL games that are played at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium is so much more than the games that are played elsewhere. Like, fans go over there and they love that experience. And like, you know, that stadium, everyone who's been knows what it is, but it's like, it has become one of those worldwide attractions. And that's a really, really big part of that legacy that's left. And it can now continue because it seems like I said, the investment seems to be coming in, and hopefully that just trickles down and leads to good things on the pitch. Speaking of on the pitch, Scott, there was a closed door friendly, I guess, or, you know, something of the sorts against Watford over the international break on the men's side of things that apparently Colomani played in, which is a good sign. He is coming back from the never-ending dead leg, which, again, is such a confusing injury that he has gone through. I don't know how you miss 3 weeks with a dead leg. That seems like more than a dead leg. That seems like a, I don't know, amputated leg. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, it's super weird.
He's apparently getting back on his feet, which is nice to see. Probably will be making his way onto the bench and probably quickly, I would think, working his way into game fitness and maybe even taking some minutes from Richarlison at the 9 role, especially with Solanke being out following his surgery. The other injury stuff that has kind of come up is Ibasuma. Apparently was stretchered off playing for Mali yesterday, came on as a sub and had to leave like 6 minutes later. So we'll have to see what's up with him. He of course is not featured for Spurs this year after everything that's kind of gone up, but he's another one of those depth pieces that you'd like to at least have around as a break in case of emergency option.
Is this year's Sergio Reguilon? Is really what he is.
Yeah, exactly. Who I saw maybe signing with Inter Miami. Did you see that news?
See that.
Which is kind of wild.
Well, Jordi Alba did announce. Yeah, Alba announced his retirement at the end of the season, so there's a gaping hole at left back for them, which I think Reguilon's a great fit for MLS. I think he'll do really well, and he's going to be in Miami, which is really no longer even. It's like culturally not even a part of the United States, right? Every time I'm in Miami, I'm like, I'm not in the U.S. at this point in time, right?
Honestly, I feel that way in any part of Florida, but definitely in Miami.
Yeah, definitely.
Sure. And also Richarlison was being rumored to Orlando City.
Yeah, so, apparently they came in for him over the summer, and we said no.
Man, it's really wild. Maybe just Spurs across MLS. It'll just be full of former Spurs players eventually. The other injury thing I wanted to mention was James Maddison documenting his recovery. I have not watched, full disclosure, the, I think, hour-long YouTube video he posted. And apparently he's been posting kind of these documentary-style videos on his YouTube page for part of the season. But this most recent one got quite a bit of buzz because it was apparently a really nice look into his recovery from the ACL surgery. And obviously we wouldn't expect him to be back anytime soon, but he's really kind of making it known that he wants to be a part of this through his recovery, which I think is kind of cool.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's in the leadership group, right? We assume that's, I would say, probably the vice captain to Cudi when he fully returns, right? Just based on his captaincy last year and all of that. I'll tell you what, while we're talking about Maddison, I cannot wait until the day when Maddison starts at the 10 and Xavi Simons starts at left wing with Mohamed Kudus on the right side. I really think that Maddison and Simmons are going to thrive, but I think their style of play will really complement one another. So get back matters. Can't wait to see you on the pitch, my dude. I really expect him to do big things under Thomas Frank, but from the looks of it, it's going to be a little bit, right?
Yeah, for sure. The only other injury that I noted, because everyone, the longtime listeners will know I am not an international break person. I watch the Euros and the World Cup and I guess the Gold Cup, but even though I don't really value that much either. But the only other thing I saw was that Brennan Johnson's neck might be hurt because of the the collar that Jed Spence had on him on social media. That's the only other injury I noticed.
Oh, I didn't see that. That's incredible.
Oh, you didn't see Jed? Yeah, Jed locked up Brennan Johnson, and then locked him up on social media as well, which
that's awesome.
I don't know if that's something that would rub me the wrong way as his teammate, or if I would just take that in good faith. But that was a choice by Jed Spence. Jed Spence does not,
dude. He's
does
ruthless.
not let anything. He's so ruthless, and I kind of really do admire it. It's really, really wild.
And the craziest thing is, like, he's backing it up with his play on the field. I mean, that dude is going to start at left back for England at the World Cup. I'm certain of it. And granted, they're pretty weak in that position, but that does not take anything away from Jed Spence. He is England's left back. He's Tottenham's left back or right back, right? I honestly think that if you at the end of the season, Porro, Udogie, Spence, I would bet that Spence has the most minutes played out of all three of them, but we'll see.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I kind of like the fact that Spence can play either side to spell Udogie and Porro, but honestly, it's not a problem because he can play either side, and I just think he's been incredible. He's definitely dipped off a little bit since his first few matches, but overall, he's just been so good and is a really important part. The other player who's kind of been a really important part on the men's side of things for the first, 7 or 8 games is been João Palhinha. And there's been reports out of Germany that Spurs are kind of already ready to pull the trigger on his release clause, his buy option, which is right around 25-30 million euros. I really like what I've seen out of Palhinha the first, part of this season. And I was glad when they signed him, not because I expected so much, but just because they needed to sign a guy who can do exactly the things that he does. He's even thrown a few goals in the net these first few matches, which is really wild because that's not something I expected. And maybe we won't get much more of that the rest of the season. Who knows? But he even stepped in at center back the one match and played really well there. How do you feel, though, about Spurs going in this direction where they would spend a decent chunk of money on a 30-year-old who is a limited passer, does a very specific thing, does it very well, and has started out well with the club and seems to be bonding and making good relationships, especially with the manager, Thomas Frank. But I don't know, does that feel like a move they should be making at this point?
For me, yes. I mean, there's always the overused trope. It's not my money. It's not my money, right? But I think when I look at João Palhinha as a 30-year-old, I think the old Spurs of past, when Daniel Levy was really getting the heat, would have said exactly what we're talking about. He's too old for $30 million. Let's go spend $30 million on some 21-year-old and see if it hits right, and then it doesn't hit, and then we can't sell him, and we end up giving him on loan for a $3 million buyout to Villarreal or something. But it's nice to see Spurs go in the direction of those who are more interested in winning now than maybe seeing what the future holds, right? I also think statistically, nobody wins more tackles or more duels in the Premier League than João Palhinha, at least when he was at Fulham. I think the only two better sixes in the Premier League are obviously Rodri, number one, and then two, I would say Moise Caicedo, who can kind of play as a 6, kind of play as an 8, 10, whatever, right? But those are the only two guys you can really bring in that are better than João Palhinha in the Premier League at this point in time, and both of them cost over $100 million. So it's good business. I think it's something Thomas Frank is very interested in having happen, or we wouldn't be interested in doing it, right? But he's been probably our most important player this season, in my opinion. So I'm really glad to hear this is the case.
It's just wild to think that too, that he really has been a key to this
so
going
good.
Right for the start of the season. Spurs are back in action, Sunday against Villa. Spurs Women and Spurs Men both playing at the same time once again this week, which we hate to see. I think there's like an hour difference in kickoff, but I swear I don't understand why we can't get that fixed, that part of this. I just don't like it.
Yeah, it seems so basic that you would make sure that like I don't know.
I mean, it obviously can't be the case for every single team, to make sure that the men's and women's teams it'll happen, but like it seems to happen often, which is part of the problem. But Villa, I was looking into Villa. They're 13th right now, but they've won 4 straight. And if you include the League Cup, they went out on penalties in the League Cup, but it was a draw, obviously. So if you include that, they're unbeaten in 7 straight. So they started out poorly, but have come on. I always think Villa's a tough match, even though this one is at home. It coming out of the break, you want to make sure you have the health too. And obviously there's still a week to go before the game, or almost a week to go. So a little bit of a hurdle still to hop over there as well. But I don't know. It makes for exciting times. So I believe that's just about going to do it for this edition of the Tottenham Depot. Before we get out of here, I wanted to just take a second to say a few words about a personal friend I lost this week, Craig Heist, who was a broadcaster in the Baltimore, D.C. area where I'm from. I met Craig at a very, very young age. In fact, I was going to work with my dad all the time as a kid, and my dad's job took him into a lot of media spaces, and I met Craig, and he immediately kind of took a liking to me even as a kid, and he was 30 years older than I was, but he unexpectedly passed on Friday, and I wanted to kind of offer my condolences to his family and to everyone else that knew Craig, because Craig was one of those guys who was a real influence on me even getting into broadcasting and doing something like a podcast, because he was a big part of when I moved out here to Arizona. He helped me get me a job out here and kind of continue my broadcasting career. And he did that for so many people. He was really, really helpful in the broadcasting space, and really, really damn good at his job too. He covered everything in that Baltimore, D.C. area. He covered baseball, football, hockey, basketball, college sports. The ironic thing is the one sport that Craig Heist hated more than anything was soccer. And anytime I would try to talk soccer with Craig, he would make fun of me for even being a fan of soccer, which is why it's so funny to me that I'm getting my platform now to speak on his memory is a soccer podcast. But it was a very unexpected, and a lot of us are grieving his loss, and I just wanted to say a few words on that. So I appreciate the space. Safe home, Heisty. We will always miss you. That's going to do it for this edition of The Depot. Be sure to follow us on our YouTube page, youtube.com/Tottenham Depot. You can follow us on the socials as well, at Tottenham Depot. We have a couple of games to talk about next week, and I'm sure there will be more news as well. So we'll do that next week. Talk to you all then. This has been the Tottenham Depot podcast. As always, come on, you Spurs.